for the World Economic Forum and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening and hosting this special meeting. It has been a fantastic couple of days, and it has been inspiring to hear the openness, the enthusiasm, the acknowledgement, the optimism, despite the complexities, some of which we've heard just now. And you talk about collaboration and how is collaboration important, particularly when we look at inclusive growth, sustainable growth, growth that means that we can grow in a way that's fair and proportionate across societies, across geographies. And we can't do that without collaboration. And if we just pause on what we mean by collaboration, because actually these meetings are a great forum for debate and discussion and to start to collaborate. But that's very, very different from cooperation. And we hear about cooperation, but really all that is about assigning each other different tasks, working alongside each other, and ensuring that what I do doesn't disrupt what you do. Collaboration is different. Collaboration is convening and creating a common goal, a common vision, and building the activities together and executing those activities together to reach that goal. And that's true collaboration. And given the complexities we're facing globally right now, much of which has been debated and discussed over the last couple of days, it's very easy to see and to feel that there's an increase in invisible and visible barriers to collaboration. And I'd encourage us all to look for where we can collaborate, because without collaborating, we can't achieve our goals of truly inclusive growth. And maybe if I just give one example to bring it to life. If we think about the sustainability aspect, you mentioned sustainability, and we talk about the importance of sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel could have a significant impact on our ambitions around carbon emission reduction. And the International Air Transport Association talks about sustainable aviation fuel probably contributing around 65% or so of the solution to achieve the net zero goals set out for 2050. It's that important. But it's nascent, it's expensive, it's going to take time to produce the production facilities, the raw materials. If we allow this to continue, and if we operate in silos, we won't achieve what we need to achieve, which is to accelerate and to achieve those goals for net zero ambitions. So what we need is collaboration. We need the agricultural waste producers to think about alternative sources of raw material. We need the jet fuel producers to be aligned with that and think about repurposing and building the production capability and processes. We need the transportation sector to think about how do we transport, what are the logistics that are required around that, complying with regulation and so on. We also need airlines to lean into that. We also need policymakers to ensure that all parties can play their part and that they're incentivized to do so in the right way. We need the funding mechanisms to do it. We need the consumer activity. We need actually associations, trade associations to play their part. The ecosystem goes on. So we need true collaboration in order to build the sustainable aviation fuel that we need to help achieve that net zero goal. So that's just one example. If we're going to get to inclusive growth, it's not about cooperation, it's real collaboration across the ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this is a perfect segue over to you, Minister. Faisal, we had a big contraction of the global economies during COVID. We'll come back to that with Stefan. But no, many countries are back at pre-COVID levels, most countries, and we see that growth is back, not as high as it used to be, but growth is back. How do you, from the kingdom's side, see the projection now for the coming year? The kingdom's economy is doing pretty well and has also diversified. 50% of your GDP is now already non-oil related. So how do you look at global economic outlook?
So, thank you, Borge. I believe we view the global economy evolving, but still stuck in a low growth, I'd say, phase, and it's unevenly distributed. If you look, for example, at IMF's recent projection, they've been increased to 3.2, but if you double click on that, you'll see that advanced economies are between 1.6, 1.8% for the coming year, and the US stands out a little bit at 2.7%. If you look at emerging economies, they're a bit higher at 4.2%, driven mainly by India, but also the Middle East and Central Asia. India at 6.5, Middle East, Central Asia at around 4.5% and more. So that's not the growth numbers that we want to continue with. We want to see more global economic growth, and that's why we're convening here. One of the themes is growth, and by that we mean inclusive growth. And how do we get there? We believe there's two things we need to focus on. One, productivity. Productivity has been going down since the global financial crisis at 1%, especially in advanced economies, at 1 percentage point per year. Maybe the US has seen an upward trend recently, but that's still the story. In emerging economies, there are two groups. There's the fast lane, as some experts call it, and the slow lane. The fast lane represents around 3.6 billion people. If they continue at that growth level, they would reach advanced economies level within 25 years. But you're still leaving out 1.4 billion people in the economies that they live in. So productivity needs to see a shift. We need to focus on the tools, the interventions that will help us grow productivity. And if you look at the fast lane countries, most of the growth or most of the performance came from very large investments. We're talking about 20 to 40% of GDP in terms of size. That's large. It's very hard for you to emulate that in emerging economies or most emerging economies. So policies need to be put in place. Investments need to be attracted to the right productive sectors so we can see an upward shift in productivity. That brings me to the second point, which is, I'd say, collaboration or fragmentation. A more fragmented world is a lower growth world. That's a fact. And with fragmentation comes a lot of costs. So we might be happy with the growth rates in some areas, but we know that without collaboration, we can't really achieve higher growth rates for the global economy. We've seen trade profiles change. We've seen countries geopolitically at distance from each other. We've seen, despite that, 20% of trade is across these geopolitical lines, and 40% of that is actually in very crucial products that are highly concentrated. So we need to acknowledge that no country or region can be self-sufficient in a very optimal fashion. Every region needs to import at least for 25% of its consumption from other regions. Coming together and acknowledging that fragmentation is not the best solution, and actually thinking about what Anna said in terms of collaboration, putting together solutions to some of the things that are pulling us apart. And as an example, the recent Middle East conflict and the need for us to find a solution for it is just an example. If we succeed in creating, just as an example, peace in the Middle East, finally, and a lasting peace, this will remove many of the headwind in front of global progress and global economic development. So we need to keep in mind productivity and fragmentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Minister, and you're so right. There is no countries that are in war or